Welcome to Look Behind the Look, the celebrated podcast that explores your favorite looks in film, television, and fashion history. Through conversations with the fashion world's elite and award-winning hair, makeup, and costume designers on sets around the world, you will see and hear exciting tales from behind the scenes, career origin stories, and tons of advice and tips. I'm your host, Tiffany Bartok. Hey everybody, welcome to Look Behind the Look. This week's episode, I am talking to three powerhouse creatives. We're talking to the hair department head and the makeup department head and the costume designer of White House Plumbers, which is on HBO right now. It's a 5-part series that tells the true story of how Nixon's own political saboteurs and Watergate masterminds, E. Howard Hunt and G. Gordon Liddy, accidentally toppled the presidency that they were trying to protect. It stars Justin Theroux and Woody Harrelson, and I may be a little biased, but he's a dear friend of mine. I wanted to give a shout out to Yul Vasquez, who's great in this, costume designer Leah Katz-Nelson, hair department head Kat Drazen, and makeup department head Sarit Klein. We're going to talk about the transformations, of course, and what particularly was challenging about this project was that, I don't know if you know this or not, but Woody Harrelson doesn't allow for animal product in the makeup and the hair products, but also on his skin. So no leather, no polyester. So the women talk about facing that challenge and learning so much through this process that they now incorporate a lot of what they learned in their careers forever, which was really fascinating to me. We talk about a lot more, including the hijinks on the set, and we had a really great time. So enjoy this conversation.
Howard! That's the White House.
Howard Hunt.
Howard, the president asked for a real son of a bitch to handle this Pentagon leak.
What do you need? I want you to meet Gordon Liddy, toughest guy I know. He'll hold his hand in the flame of the candle.
I do not bend, and I do not break. What's the trick?
There isn't one. Gets third-degree burns every time.
Please stop.
You now work for the committee to re-elect the president. Your new mission is to make sure he wins this election.
We'll intercept confidential information of the radical left.
What's the plan?
We're going to hit the DNC at the Watergate.
Howard, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Hi, everybody. Everybody coming from their car. Are you all coming from the same city? Are you all in LA or?
I think we're all in New York.
New York,
Yeah.
me too. Great.
Currently
Okay.
in New York, yes.
Awesome. I live in Brooklyn. Where do you all live?
Manhattan. And I'm Westchester.
Okay.
I'm actually Jersey. I'm the Jersey girl.
Okay. Good. Awesome. So go ahead. We have all the departments today that we want to talk to. This is so exciting. I really appreciate being as busy as you are coming together to talk about this great project. And just could you go ahead and just say your name and department so everybody who's watching knows? Kat, do you want to start?
Okay, I'll go first. Yeah, I'm in the car. Kat Drazen. I'm head of the hair department for White House Plumbers.
I'm Sarit Klein. I'm head of makeup for White House Plumbers.
And I'm Leah Katz-Nelson. I'm the costume designer for White House Plumbers.
Amazing. Okay, so I watched the series. Are we calling it a limited series? Yes. So
Yeah,
I watched limited
Mhm.
series. It's going to be on HBO starting on May 1st. So I believe it will be out by the time people are listening, and they're going to be loving it. And let's talk about how we did it. So how did each of you come to the project? Let's start there.
Well, I think essentially all of our names that are brought together by the producers and directors and people that know us and our reputation, put our names in a hat with some potential, other candidates, and we get a pinch of the script, we interview, and then they pick us. So we kind of all come together as a team based off of just luck, I guess, the luck of the draw.
Okay.
And what it is that we can bring to the table based off of our creative profession. And the great thing about Sarit, Leah, and I is when we did all meet and start sharing our vision, it was very cohesive and fun, and our personalities connected, and the same excitement existed between the three of us, which makes it such a lovely work environment, especially a show of this capacity.
Yeah, the tone is so tricky in this
in this series, it was so particular. So I imagine being on the same page was like really scary. Like, what are we gonna when we all come together? I hope we all have the same idea. So that's a great way to start. Leah, how did you come to the project?
I actually had been the costume designer for Alex Gregory and Pete Hike years ago on a film that they wrote and directed. And we stayed friends and we're kind of always looking for a way to collaborate again together and hadn't quite found that place yet. And then got sent the script, got to meet with David and put forward some ideas. And it was exciting because I think from the beginning, and I know Kat and Sarit will agree, David really wanted things to feel very grounded in realism and not sort of caricatures of the 70s, even though these characters themselves are larger than life. He did not want the design concept of the show to lead in that way. And from the minute we started talking, we were kind of in the same place. I had done a lot of contemporary film work, and one of the things I've always loved about it is that it's stories about real people. And that sort of concept really translates to working on this story especially as well.
And Sarit?
My agent has submitted me for this, and I actually know the UPM Marshall Johnson, and I interviewed with David in a couple EPs. And just like Leah, I've done a lot of grounded real people jobs. For instance, I did Marvel shows for Netflix, Jessica Jones, Daredevil, and although they're superheroes, they're real vulnerable people. So that is one of the things that I spoke with David Mandel at the interview. And he liked the project and the feel of what I worked on in the past. And when I got the job, I heard that Kat is on the job as well. And Kat and I have known each other for almost 20 years. We started out in a soap opera together.
Which one?
We did a couple of projects. One Life to Live.
One Life to
One
Live.
Life. Nice.
Yes, almost 20 years ago. So
Nice.
It was so exciting to join forces with her, and then, fell in love with Leah right off the bat. And like Leah was saying, right from the start, David wanted us to portray authenticity of the actors, not necessarily to match everyone. Obviously, the lead actors more so than not, but we relied heavily on the casting. If somebody wasn't an exact physical match, he wanted us to, to evoke the essence of the character.
Okay.
So we were all on the same page with that.
What are some of those key essence factors that you were looking at?
I mean, I think one thing that was really interesting, I'm sure you guys found this as well with your research, is that most of the big players in our story were heavily documented after the fact, after the break, after the testimony, after being sentenced, when they, received more attention in that regard. Their real lives prior to that were not heavily documented. People didn't take photographs of their families the same way we do with in the digital age. So there are bits and pieces, and our job was kind of to work backwards from what was available to us after the Watergate break-in had transpired, and then try to, read their biographies, read anything that you could get your hands on that was related to their lives and their families, and then try to craft an image around that sort of, work backing into who they were as individuals. And these stories really tell a lot more about who they are as individuals rather than as public figures.
Right.
Imagining who they were in their private lives, how do they appear and present themselves, was really something that we all worked kind of backwards into, instead of working the other way out. The dearth of research really was for whatever happened after the fact.
Right. That's interesting. So like, who would be married to Woody Harrelson's character? Right. I get it, because I noticed her wig was very perfect. I pictured you thinking, Kat, like everything has to be perfect for him, like was probably on the top of her mind because it was so particular and everything was perfect. And that was great detail that was paid attention to. You guys probably didn't have any fun on this project at all. It looks like it was probably like so boring.
Serious.
Very stoic.
Oh, Kat, you have a hand up on your you have a wave.
Oh, I do?
Yes, I'm calling on you. Hello. So the scenes where they would play dress up and stuff, can you walk me through I mean, they wouldn't play dress up, I'm sorry. They would be getting into very serious costumes to do their shenanigans. Like in the first episode, they opened the closet and there's the wigs. And can you talk a little bit about the process of picking what they were going to wear and choose and what they were going to do in those decisions?
I think, Kat, you probably agree that that was the scene where I think David allowed for the comedy to come through with the
Definitely
clothing choices. It was probably the only one maybe in the rest of the, a lot of the dialogue that they say where it does really have a lot of comedic bent to it and are lifted from transcripts. A lot of that is real dialogue. So the comedy really came from the acting and the writing, but the clothes and the wigs and all of those elements when they go to LA, it is really to kind of encapsulate how insane their choices are as government operatives. And it was sort of our, I think, the place where David let us push the envelope of the 70s and the comedy that could come with that.
It was very, very Beastie Boys Sabotage-esque. I loved it. Loved it. Can you tell me about Woody's dental piece? Sorry, that must have been a nightmare. Was it a kind of a nightmare?
Well, it was interesting. So both Woody and Justin wore dental. Woody wore upper custom-made fake teeth. Yeah. And Justin wore bottom dental plumpers.
Oh, yes. Plumbers. Okay.
Yes. So let's start with Woody. Originally, there was an idea of a prosthetic nose. Okay. And we actually did a makeup test with that. And then we decided we don't have to do that necessarily. It was also, hot and humid. We'd be chasing, edges, the whole, we didn't want that to affect the performance or his, basically his performance. So we decided to do something to hide his famous Woody smile that he has, the gap. And Alterian Tony Gardner sculpted that, and then Fangs FX in the UK made that. Okay. And funny story, I had 3 to start with, and day one, as makeup artist, his makeup artist, I hand it over, I turn my back, and he breaks them. So I ran, remember ladies, I ran down the stairs, back to the trailer. Everyone's waiting for me. Get the second pair. I bring it up, and I think it was the same day he broke another pair. So
How did they break?
He was just fidgeting with his hands as he was acting. Before, he was just chatting with Justin, and before he put it in his mouth, it just. So, I gave him a little bit of a lesson of what not to do, and then I just basically handed it, put it in your mouth. I did not leave until he did that. But then I called up Fangs FX in the UK and, basically expressed 9 pairs just to have it. Wow. And then of course, for the rest of the show, he didn't break any pairs. Of course not.
Now the Woody fans are like, where are these others? I want to own that prosthetic.
May or may not be in my garage. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
They're back in production.
I love it.
Yeah. But that was great. And it really did make a difference because those obviously, Woody actually only uses natural products and vegan products.
Oh, this must be difficult.
Yes, I got a list in advance of, what I can carry. And then I basically said, okay, this is a learning experience for me. Maybe I can see what I can, work around in my kit to transfer everything to be, Q-tips made from bamboo and, bamboo toothpaste. So I just basically revamped my whole kit to make it more natural. Yeah. So, which was great because he actually asked for more things and I had it. And the teeth that I got were super white. And I said, okay, what can I use that's more natural to make it look like his teeth? So I dyed it with black tea.
I thought you were going to say that.
I dyed the teeth with black tea. I did a few tests until they, became just less artificial.
Oh, that's so
that was a learning process for me too. And I loved it.
And what did you retain from that? I mean, it seems like it's kind of cool experience to go through. What kinds of things did any of you retain about, updating your kits from his use of natural products?
I think for me, I was surprised that there are a lot of products available that some of them we just don't know or they're not advertised mainstream. Mm-hmm. But there are so many. You just have to research a little bit more and sometimes pay a little bit more. But they're out there.
And does this go in other places? Would he wear what leather? And Kat, did it affect your wigs? Oh, well, no.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we did. We used Woody's. It was his own hair, but certainly for styling purposes, yeah, I revamped my kit for him as well, using all natural products. And it did just take a little bit of research and a little bit of trial and error. You know, what's going to work best to maintain and keep his hair in shape and looking consistent. And that was, you know, one of many great things about the experience of the show was having and learning about all of these products that are organic and all natural and non-irritating and not tested. I've actually continued to use them after leaving the show. I've fallen in love with a few brands. Yeah.
What are some of your favorites?
Really good. Inner Sense is one of my favorites, and we use also, it was called oh my gosh, there were quite a few. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Brain fart moment. But yeah, there were just so many. And Woody actually brought a few to our brown, like Dr. Bronner's, certainly Bronner's. For soap and clean. Yeah. And things of that nature. So yeah.
And Leah, did this affect the costuming at all, or?
Yes, significantly.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Woody does not wear anything that is synthetic.
And this is Polyesterville.
It's the 70s. So, and he also doesn't wear any animal products. So we custom made pretty much, I would say 85% of everything. And then what was vintage was all natural fibers. So it was predominantly wool or cotton in that regard, or silks. What was so interesting about that was it was a real learning curve for me as well on doing research on not only using natural fibers, but also working with woolen mills that have sustainable ethical practices that are humane for the animals that they do draw the wool from. The cashmere, I did a lot of deep research into making sure that whomever I worked with in that regard represented the same kind of ethical values that Woody does. Yeah. Down to the buttons. I mean, the buttons that he used, a lot of buttons are typically plastic. They can be mother of pearl, but that's not always a sustainable element. So we actually, most of his buttons were made from Brazil nuts. They're called Corozo buttons, and they're dyeable. So we were able to use them on all of his suiting, his shirting. Even the thread that I used was all natural cotton thread. So every element that he wore was a natural fiber.
This is blowing my mind. I mean, everyone needs to know about this. This is amazing. Leah, what were some of the places that you got the cashmere from? What were some of are they farms?
Most of them are in Scotland. Most of them are mills that are either in Scotland or in Italy. I worked with vendors here in the US who connected us to them, and they were all on board. I mean, even from the craftspeople that manufactured his suiting for us, working under those constraints is difficult for them too, because the different kinds of threads last differently. They're easier to run through machines. You know, there's a lot of differences in terms of lead time and things like that they have to get involved with. And they were able to ask questions too of their sources of where we usually buy our fabric from in ways that they hadn't previously. So it was an education for all of us. And I now have truly stayed with working a lot with a lot of those vendors in terms of acquiring fabrics from them. You create a relationship, and then you really can stand by what you've made. There is a real carbon footprint to creating garments that get worn for a very short period of time and then end up in a box or perhaps in a rental. So knowing that you've done it in as thoughtful a way as possible was a really significant, initially felt like a challenge, but really I feel like was kind of quite a blessing to be able to have this education.
Oh my goodness. I feel like Woody needs to never go anywhere without any of the three of you ever again. Now that
we all love Woody.
You could make a guidebook of like working with Woody, these places, these things. I'm noticing that you three are so professional, and you have so much experience, and wouldn't you share with somebody else that when you face something like this, like, oh, and by the way, she won't do this, and by the way, he won't do that, and some people let that really, they sort of meet it with like a negative stance, but wouldn't you advise that embracing it the way that you guys did, it can benefit you and make the job so much easier, right?
I 100% agree. To add to what we all just said is knowing that I had to revamp my kit, I wanted to extend that to the other actors.
Yes.
So for instance, on Dorothy Hunt, on Lena, I use a lot of natural products, Elia, Merit,
Wow.
Beauty Counter. There's just so many different and wonderful natural, animal cruelty-free, vegan products out there. You just have to do a little bit more research. So it wasn't necessarily a full clean trailer, but I think we tried to incorporate as many natural products as possible. For instance, per Woody's request, he wanted an aloe vera plant. So I can use coconut oil and aloe vera as moisturizer and removers. On the weekends,
you just broke the thing? You just broke
sure
the
did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
yes,
I put it also
it.
I put it also in the fridge. Every day I would switch it out, just put a leaf. So it would be, cold under eyes if needed. You can open that if, instead of a medic, I can clean a wound. There's just all these little tricks that I learned.
Fantastic. I love that. What was was it the same day? And so if it's different days, tell me, but did you all experience one day that was just the biggest challenge? Like, how are we going to get through this day? Can you remember how you conquered the biggest challenge that you found on the shoot? It could have possibly been all different experiences. You're like,
I think there were, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think globally, there was an immense amount of background as well as job. And, a big piece of our job is to sell the period through the background as well. So, there were days where we had hundreds of background who were from head to toe in the hands of our skilled, talented teams. And I think, and then we also had all of the Cubans and Woody and Justin and their families and the Judy and Lena. And so, I think the days that were probably the most challenging were maybe the ones where there was just the sheer scope of what was needed to be produced in a short period of time, was what the challenge was. But I know we all felt this way, but the teams themselves, like, truly, I could not have done this job without my department. And not just the collaboration between us and our department heads and the other creatives on the project, but we had like an army of people in a warehouse in Newburgh, New York. We had our own rental house essentially, and just the number of tailors, the age or dying team, the supervisors, the PAs, the coordinator, like it was just, they were all, and also our schedule changed quite significantly. We were also working in pretty deep COVID circumstances.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So I think that presented challenges. We all come in very close proximity and touch everybody all of the time, and so do our teams. So I think that created another layer of challenge to the work that we were all doing.
Ladies, did you see do you remember any crazy challenges?
I think funeral and the hearings, like Leah was saying, there's a massive amount of background, and as a period show, every single person has to go through hair and makeup. So makeup team, we had 2 background supervisors, and on days like that we had about 20 something makeup artists to go through hundreds of people in various categories, whether sometimes you have DC government workers that have a specific look, or you have protesters that get facial hair. And when we were basically filming another layer of challenge. When we were filming in New York, we were actually prepping DC, and we were prepping LA because we filmed in 3 different states. So Kat and I basically daily got information from DC and then from LA of which background is being considered to be cast. And Kat and I would sift full days of looking through pictures of background and saying, okay, giving notes to this one, this has lash extensions, or this one needs to shave. So we were constantly filming, prepping, testing every single day. So that during COVID. So that was
Wow.
challenging.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh. So what is a tip that you have for dealing with background? Do you ever also, while you're talking, I'm thinking of that moment. Is there ever that moment where you look on the monitor and you're like, I didn't see that guy. What is he? Wait, what do you have you ever had that moment? That's like my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Wait, I didn't ever see him. What is he doing there? Get him back here. I need to put a mustache on him really quickly or update him. Has that ever happened to you? No, luckily. Oh, Kat's
I mean, I think
nodding.
we
You're
usually
nodding.
are able to catch
That
it. I feel like,
happens.
yeah, I feel like for the most part, you're able to catch it when they're doing a
Okay.
rehearsal or walkthrough,
Right.
where you sort of are like, oh no, bury that guy
Yeah.
in the back.
Yeah.
Looks like he's from 2023 and not from 1971, and that's not going to work.
I'll never forget when I was watching when they used to have, the kids don't know, they used to have commentary on the DVDs, and I was watching Pollock, and Ed Harris did the commentary, and in the opening scene, he says, he's talking about all of the background, and he goes, now that guy needs to calm the fuck down. This extra was just taking up the whole thing. I'll never forget it. So it's like what I think about. But you do have to lead it like a military sergeant, and how do you keep your calm in those huge epic background scenes? Are you just delegating the priority, or getting rest the night before, or what is the key to making a success?
I mean, I would say rest is never an option for
No,
us.
no.
Well, yeah, take that.
I
Cross that
wish.
one off. Cross that one off.
You just kind of have to go with it as it comes at you, and you do have to have confidence in your team, and there is delegating, and it is diet. It's definitely not rest. But you do have to be able to manage and roll with it and not get so anxious, because problems and conflicts and challenges will come up on a daily, and you do your best to be prepared and have your plan B, plan C, and plan D. But for me, you have to be able to roll with the challenges and changes that are going to come, because more often than not, in every film project, changes happen on a daily basis. That's something that you kind of get used to as you continue through your journey in this career and industry.
And when you're picking your team, do you look for people that are flexible like that? Is that something that's in the back of your mind? Like, is she or he going to be able to deal with just about anything, or are they kind of set in their ways? How do you pick your assistant?
Definitely
important, I think.
What was that, Kat?
I said a vibe certainly is
yeah.
that is important. Yeah. And how everybody mixes together, along with having the skill set that works for that particular project.
Right.
My team definitely shifts from project to project. So those two components are, I feel makes a successful trailer, and you get through the journey with less conflict for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we spend so many. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Sarit.
No, it's fine. Sarit, I was just going to ask how you pick your assistants, what you look for, and not even assistants, but like the key and
teammates.
Your teammates. Yes.
I think for me, it also changes per project. It's super important for me just to have a drama-free, cohesive trailer. Obviously, with the team, and obviously with the hair team, because we work together. We did 6 months of the shoot with 2 little shutdowns. We did 15, 17-hour days with our pre-calls. So you really want somebody, first of all, you want team members that are skilled in that specific area. And you want just people that don't bring their egos to work. And I do really feel that we are a team, and there's no way you can do any job without your team, but also such a huge job like this. We had 3 to 4 people in the trailer daily, plus 2 running background. And my third, Stephen Lawrence, who I've not worked with, he's very skilled in effects. And I hired him based on also his reputation, but also chatting with him. And he was in charge of bald cap. Basically, he was in charge of Yul Vasquez. We transformed him to Bernard Barker. He has this full head of hair. So we had to, Kat and I discussed this, and David Mandel preferred to have that. So Stephen geniusly altered this bald cap to make it work during the humid 12, 15-hour days that you was
Wow,
working.
that's a feat. That's a feat.
There really is. So he was in charge of that. And also he was in another trailer because of COVID. They kind of separated us. So there was a lot of trust in managing and delegating.
Leah, what do you keep in mind when you're building a team?
I mean, by and large, you become a family. You really spend, as Sarit and Kat are attested to, we work sometimes 16, 17 hours a day, sometimes 6 days a week with these people. So, to not just have trust in their, first and foremost, obviously with their skill set and talents and what they can bring creatively to the table, but truly as human beings, like who do you want to hang out with for that much time?
Yeah.
And trust their skill set, who will bring some levity when the circumstances are complicated, who will understand that we can have a sense of humor and work hard at the same time. For me, snacks are also very important. Who is interested in snacks?
Yeah, so true.
Wait, do you want them to be interested in them or not?
Yeah.
Okay.
Snacks are very important.
We have a full drawer.
We have a sign on my truck I'm on now that says the carb counter because
oh my God, I love that. What are your favorite snacks? I don't know why I'm asking, but I just personally want to know.
I like sweet and salty, so it's really hard to pick, but I like bread. I love bread of all kinds. So.
Hunks of bread. Yes, please. I'm so glad you brought up Yul. He's a really good friend of mine and I love him so much. I love to see him do anything, but of course I'm biased in my eye was just drawn to him every time he was on screen. Can you tell me what it was like transforming Yul? You've told me about the hair. No, he has a thick, beautiful head of hair. So that we got that one. That must have been a nightmare to deal with, but it was successful. And can you talk to me about his character and how it developed a little bit, Leah and Kat?
So Macho, there is some photo research that we were able to kind of pull together, with a deep dive. We probably had maybe 6 or 7 images. A lot of them were, again, after the fact, but there's writing that was available to us in terms of research to sort of hear what his life was like in Miami, his background, and then you kind of lean into those elements in terms of creating a persona around that. He was pretty much a straightforward kind of human being. And so a lot of the choices we made were not exuberant or too contrived or complicated. A lot of them were very straightforward, very traditionally masculine tones and silhouettes of the period. So that's kind of what we leaned into for him. And then also working with props to get great glasses that were, really something that were.
I mean, did he buy 5 pairs of them?
No, he would have loved it. And then hats also,
Yes. So, and Kat and Sarit, when you're dealing with hair, this is always fun for people to know, like, how do you divide and conquer? Like, what's makeup and what's hair? You know what I mean? Like how, when you're dealing with hair pieces and stuff, what's the makeup department's applying the bald cap. And then they hand it over to you?
I mean, no, Yul does have that full head of hair. And his camera test day is something that I remember vividly. To Sarit as well, because he flew in from Miami. We had booked a half a day with him. I had a wig, like a stock wig ready that I knew I was going to have to customize, and we had Steven there to apply the bald cap, and we had a nice day of trial and error to finesse and really get it to how it is. So I prepped the hair prior to the bald cap.
Okay.
So Yul sat with me. We talked a little bit. There was, pressure for his character to match him exactly. So I remember my preliminary conversations with David. How are we going to create this comb over? And with Sarit, we came up with the idea. And what you would normally do is bald cap it and then apply the wig. So I prepped. He would sit with makeup special effects to get the bald cap and then come back to me to cut and customize the wig, which took a few tries. I mean, we really cut it up and then sewed it back together to create that dynamic comb over that Bernard had. And Yule was such a sport, you know, and sat through, I think a couple, maybe 3 or 4 applications that day.
What was the problem? Was it too on the nose or too what do you find to be a problem when you're looking at it on screen? What was like, it's too what?
Yeah, you know, essentially it started out, like for me anyway, it was too much hair. You know, when you're cutting down a wig and customizing it like we did, you never want to go too far because you can't always put it back. You know, hair doesn't grow back on a wig, and it's really difficult to put it back once it's gone. So when we were building that look, you know, it was kind of done in steps of getting shorter and shorter and smaller and smaller and more forehead, you know, until we got to the point where it looked realistic and believable.
Wonderful. Well, job well done.
Thanks.
Well, ladies, I'm so happy we did this. You impressed me so much. You impressed me greatly. And these stories are going to be so great to share with our audience who is going to love this show. And you guys are getting ready for a big adventure and a lot of questions about all these things. So
proud of it. I'm
that's
so
your
proud.
rest. Yeah, it's going to be a big success. And I wish you guys all well. I'll talk to you about the next one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Sorry for being in my car.
Bye.
Look Behind the Look is a Vinyl Foot production, written by me, your host, Tiffany Bartok, produced by Jace Bartok, edited by Evan Rivard. If you're interested in learning more, find our video version on the YouTube channel, Look Behind the Look Podcast. There you can see rare photos and clips from our guests. And please follow us on Twitter at LookBehindPod and Instagram at LookBehindTheLook. If you like the show, please rate, review, and subscribe. And tell your friends and spread the word. You can subscribe to us on iTunes or any podcatcher of your choice. Thanks for listening to Look Behind the Look.